you pour water in there and the water will eventually evaporate. So it's like kind of like a humidifier.
It doesn't collect water.
No.
It just blows cold air.
It's the opposite.
So it's not like a proper air conditioner.
But it works so well if you put it by your feet. I'm no longer sweating in every meeting that the door's closed. So
I need one of those.
I'll buy you one, Brian. $30. You're worth it, man.
Bonus time. Sure.
You're a little bright.
Oh,
He's not bright.
go back to turn the light back on.
Yeah.
I can't tell a difference, but
I couldn't either, Shane. So
as long as Brian's happy today.
we got to get Brian happy.
Get him an air conditioner.
Yes. His feet are hot.
Yeah.
Hot.
Take off your
Brian
shoes,
hates
man.
hot feet.
Hot feet.
Hello, welcome to Financial Detox. I'm Jason Labrum in studio with
Alex Klingensmith.
We nailed it, Alex. It's you never know if I'm going to say in studio with Alex Klingensmith or I'm going to say in studio with.
It's okay. It's good. It makes me make sure I'm paying attention.
You
right?
got to pay attention. I want you focused. So this is like that. Clap twice if you can hear me. Clap. Wait, yeah, right? Okay.
I use that as a coach. It works really well. You have to go.
It's
if you can hear me clap
unbelievable.
once, and then you do the twice one. By then twice.
How do you
one,
do
everyone
it?
gets
What's the way?
You
do
say
this?
if you can hear me clap once, and you'll usually get like 10% of the people, the kids, especially if they're kids, and then if you can hear me clap twice, and by then everyone joins in on the second round.
That's awesome because they all hear the first clap and they're like, "Wait, what just happened?" And then you got the okay, good.
Thank you, Mr. Devich. That's where I learned that one from. He probably got it from somewhere else, but yeah,
That's good. And since we're talking about kids, this is a perfect intro to today's show because I don't know about you as a listener here, but for us at our age, we have children and we've gone through the early years and the preteen years. And now I'm in the teen years and Alex is kind of right there behind me, just barely. But it's seems to end up being kind of the thing you think about most. I mean, we all care so deeply about our children and how our children turn out. I seem to care more about that than how I turn out at this point. Maybe it's because I'm a lost cause of 50, but
there's still hope for you, Jason.
There's hope for me.
That's awesome. Plenty of years ahead.
There's hope for me. There's definitely hope for the boys then. And one thing that I think we tend to forget about is the how to educate our kids financially. We know that the educational institutions and public schools and even private schools for that matter, do not do a very good job of educating our kids about money, about checking accounts, about investing, stocks, bonds, loans, debt. So we're going to hit that hard this show, kind of go through different phases of life, which both Alex and I picked this up from church, which I think is unbelievable from a parenting, but this is not this is not parenting detox. This is financial detox. So we won't talk too much about that, but I do believe that this block of your kind of first 5 years, right, Alex, then you're 6 to 10, 6 to 11, you're 11 to 15, these 3 or 4 blocks of phases, there are certain things that need to happen as parents, but also financially, I think there's some awesome opportunities in each of those blocks to make great decisions for your kids and for your kids' financial future. And so you can educate them and put them far ahead of the pack.
Yep. The why behind this show is because it matters. I think anyone who has children, or even if they're not your children, if they're like nieces and nephews or godchildren or something, it matters because I believe at least financial skills, financial peace, they're learned skills. They're not just lucky outcomes. Very similar to like leadership in business or leadership in anything you're doing. I agree with what Echelon Front, Jocko Willink and Leif and Dave Burke talk about and write about and teach about is that leadership is a learned skill. You're not just a born leader. There are people that are born to lead, but they need to learn the skills behind them. So as parents or as adult figures with younger children, we're going through it right now, Jason. You broke it down really well. I first heard about this at Daybreak Church here in Carlsbad from awesome Jason Graves, and he didn't have a visual, but he actually broke it down so well in his words because he's a much more eloquent speaker than I am. He talked about how when your children are 0 to 5 years old, you're the caretaker. You're keeping them alive, right? And then he talked about phase 2 from ages 5 to 12 or so. You're the cop, right? Which is direct, correct, train. Not the most fun years, right? You're literally a cop, unless you love being a police officer, which many people do, but I didn't. That can be a hard time, but it's so important to remember that's your role as a parent. Phase 3 is a coach, ages 12 to 17. Some of my favorite memories so far have been in that role as a coach to teach, to model the behavior that you want them to model, to encourage, and obviously if you're faith-based, to pray. You're playing all along if you're faith-based, but that's the one where you're praying even more, I think. And then at 18 plus, you're a consultant at that point is the thought. And that's tough, to be the listener, the advisor, the supporter, and to transition from coach to consultant, I think is probably the most difficult transition for anyone I know. Because you're letting go. You're saying my child is now an adult and needs to make their own decisions and have their own real big failures, right? That's where the biggest stuff happens. So now let's match some financial advice to those four phases, right?
It's a really cool breakdown, though. I mean, if you think about the years, and I've seen it comes in different versions. I've seen it where discipline, I think, was 0 to 5, where it's caretaker, maybe a little harsher perspective, but where those are the years they learn right, wrong, do, don't, very kind of specific. And where if you instill that discipline in those early years or consequences, then they become much better children later on. And I think that comes for us financially too, right, Alex? So as let's take that first phase, so whatever you want to call that phase, it's ages 0 to 5.
Caretaker phase.
Yeah. Caretaker. What are we going to do financially to make a huge impact for our kids? And I think number one, which you've put down on our outline here, I think you have to have a 529 savings plan.
Yeah.
They started out good and now they're much better because there's a lot more flexibility now than there was in the past with the 529 college savings plan. Even that you can take a portion of the money not used for college and put it to a Roth IRA for the child. And I believe that number, don't correct me, or please don't hit me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's $35,000. So that's insane that you can take money that you put away, it grew tax-free, and actually convert that to a Roth. That is a gigantic start for a child to their financial life. It's just, that alone is, if you did that in the caretaker years of the 0 through 5, you've already done something pretty darn good.
I heard it. I love learning from clients, and I learned something from a client last week that I'd never really heard before, and I loved what he said. And it's not the specific advice I'd give anybody generally, but he said we started 529s for our kids now that they're in their later teenage years, kind of like yours are, Jason. They're in the middle of high school, right?
Yep.
His children are. He's telling them now they have 529s, but he doesn't even want them to use them. So bear with me on this. Check it out. So they've been growing tax-free. So tax-free growth. Remember that you can change the beneficiary on a 529 whenever you want to anybody almost.
Once a year.
Yep. And he told them this. He said, I don't want you to use your 529s for college, even though both of his kids are going to go to colleges in California, state schools or UCs. They have good grades. I want you to keep saving that money. I want you to actually take a student loan and continue to let that thing grow, compounding. And I said, wow, that's an aggressive move, because I think what he's betting on is that they'll be able to grow those better or more than the interest-only payments they're going to be making on their student loans, even though interest rates are kind of higher right now than they have been, in recent years. That's an interesting strategy. I've never heard of anybody saving for college and then telling their children not to use the 529 for the college itself. But he's like, well, think about it. You can change the beneficiary to anyone later on. It could be even like their children.
Yeah.
So you could end up with hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax-free growth. He's also he's a very tough parent, which I love. He's still kind of a cop, even though they're in the coaching mode right now. He's like, I want them to have skin in the game. I want them to have an interest payment to learn what it is to build a discipline and build that muscle of having a payment towards their education so that they take their classes more seriously and they don't skip classes and they get good grades and all these things. And I'm like, wow. Maybe I should.
I think there's a good perspective there, right? There's a perspective that if you just give them their college and it's all paid for and they have no idea about the cost, and then in the absence of price, there's no perceived value. They may not value it. So it's a really good point. We were actually working with a different client, Alex, the other day, who has just tons of money in the 529 plans, and a couple of the kids got scholarships. Mm-hmm. So it was like, well, what do I do now? And that's exactly was the outcome. It's like, let them use them for their kids. It keeps going in perpetuity. So it's an awesome tool. Pill out 25,000 or 35,000 for the Roth option and let the rest continue to grow. So number one, let's write that down and know that, right? That it's a 529 plan makes sense. to get prepared. College is not going to be any less expensive. Although we could flip the script totally and go, there's actually a pretty good argument developing for there's no need to go to college, because a lot of times it's a total waste of time. It's a lesson in how to do beer bongs and chase girls or vice versa. Yeah, there we go. Brian's pumped. I mean, if you think about the ability to learn through artificial intelligence and AI right now, I think you could get a 4-year degree done and learn probably significantly more in 12 months of dedicated, planned out study on using AI. So yeah, I don't know. That argument is going to become, I think, more and more relevant. And if, for me, I think it's relevant. If my kids aren't playing sports in college, then I would probably seriously consider opening a business and learning through other means than going to some institution and dumping $400,000 for a social education.
Let's go back to the first phase first. I know we're jumping around a little bit in terms of the ages, because that's the thing about being a parent is you have to remember, like, let's concentrate on anyone who's a parent ages 0 to 5 right now, of 0 to 5-year-olds. The 529 is we think it's great because it gives you choices. It helps you as a parent become even more disciplined in saving money for the future of your children. I think there's another concept here it's a little bit gray on the area of financial advice versus just life advice. So I'll tread lightly with much humility, but I think there's this concept of delayed gratification to teach children. Delayed gratification, for example, is saving money for eventually being able to buy something. And you can do that even with very small children through books and games. You must be patient in order to get to the final outcome. You can't just immediately win at Monopoly. You have to sit there for 3 hours and go through the whole thing and actually make good choices. And there's really simple children's games that teach that at a very, very basic elementary level. And then obviously you can get all the way up to like becoming a grand chess master where you're thinking 10 steps ahead of everybody else. But I think that kind of stuff actually plays into financial literacy later on, is that concept of delayed gratification. Tough one to do in real life, right?
It's huge, but I mean, if we don't do it now, I think we are building a society of instant gratification, 8-second clips at the most. I think we're down to like 4-second clips now. People like, it's tough. So delaying gratification, having patience, discipline, because good things don't generally just happen automatically. They take some work and perseverance.
And that's when you get those people that are trying to time the market, trying to pick stocks, playing the lottery every day, thinking they're going to become rich without any discipline at all, which you hear the one story of somebody that pulled it off and you think it's possible for everybody. And that's just not how the real world works, right?
Exactly.
Phase 2.
Let's go to phase 2.
Cops.
What years?
5 to 12. 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds, you're a cop as a parent or as an adult, influencer.
Maybe that was the discipline.
Train.
Maybe I've got them confused. That might have been the discipline.
That's probably when you're disciplining children more than 0 to 5-year-olds.
Good point.
The 2-year-old's like, why are you yelling at me? I don't even know what I did.
Discipline does not have to be yelling, Alex.
I know, but like, you know what I mean? When you're a little kid, you're a 2-year-old, any adult raising their voice, it's scary,
It is scary, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
All
I got
right.
traumatized.
So we're in the
5 to 12.
now we're cop / disciplinary.
Now we're cops, yeah. Now we're cops. So I think the first one we have down here is starting an allowance system. And you and I were talking about this yesterday, right? The allowance system versus transitioning that into what I've learned now. And I'm kind of in between phase 2 and 3 with most of my 3 kids right now. But phase 1 the cop phase is you want to teach your kids the give, save, spend, right? That's a really good old adage.
Yep.
How much should we be giving back to others that need help? How much should we be saving for ourselves for the future versus how much can we spend right now on whatever we want right now?
Yep.
That's a tough one. What are your thoughts on that one, Jason?
Well, I think I've totally screwed this up in full disclosure, right?
That's okay. There's still hope for you.
This is, I don't think there's hope. I'm a lost cause. No, there's the cobbler's kids have no shoes kind of thing. I mean, I've realized here, because my boys have just got to the age where one's driving the other one around and they're mobile and they're out and about doing their things. And we just have they're on Apple Pay. They pay for stuff through Apple Pay, like Chipotle or whatever. But we've realized now, well, we haven't governed that at all. They have no value, no understanding of the value of the money from that perspective. Because I finally pulled it up and started running the numbers. They're like hitting Chipotle sometimes 2 times a day. Like they're eating, they're trying to gain weight. I get it, but there's no value. So I think that this whole understand how much money you have, an allowance system, a chores, a compensation plan for chores and household duties and things like that. It can be really simple, but it's really critical. And I'm late. So I'm literally building this. This is why we did the show today. Cause I was like, Alex, let's do the show on this because I'm solving for this right now. I'm late and I've screwed up in the sense that, never really gave them a specific chore allowance and money. So they had to manage and budget. And
it's okay.
They do have investment accounts and they understand that. And they go in and even make a trade here and there on their accounts. And that's great.
Yeah.
So we've got them to put the money in an account, which by the way, we have UTMAs. So kind of back, not going too far back here, but when you're thinking about setting up accounts, you have 529s. You also have a UTMA, that stands for Universal Transfer to Minors account. And that's a different type of account than a 529. You're literally, any money that goes into that account, you're gifting it to the child. That then they take full ownership of that at a particular age that you designate. By default, I think it's 21, 18 or 21. You can push that out to 25. UTMAs can be used for anything, unlike a 529 that can only be used for college expenses, qualified institutional expenses, or as we talked about, that 35,000 rolled to a Roth. UTMA can be used for anything, for the car, for travel, whatever they may need. So that's another great supplement account.
I'm glad you brought that one up. I forgot that one. We did do that one because when I was growing up, that's what they had. They didn't have custodial accounts at UTMAs. They didn't have 529s.
Yeah.
And my grandparents bought Altria, Disney, and Chevron. And they just put $25 a month into each one of those stocks, reinvesting dividends so that when I one day was wanting to go to college, there would be money set aside for my education. And that was through exactly the kind of account you just mentioned.
Yeah,
so,
they work really well. And they're a great supplement. We do both, right?
Yep.
For our kids, we do both. But
too.
still, there's the next step too of like, okay, they've got the accounts, but now teach them what we're talking about as like there's an allowance.
Yes, budgeting.
There's a budgeting aspect to this because what's mind-boggling is still to this day how many very intelligent, wealthy, accomplished people that we work for at IDA Wealth that have no concept of how much money they're spending. And that's the most critical part of a budget, or of a financial plan, is the budget. Like, what is the amount of money you need every year to do the things you want to do? Like, what are your expenses? And it's radical how many times the answer is, I have no idea. And I'm like, well, let's get out the spreadsheet and we'll start going through and ticking these off. So I think instilling that at an early age for kids is going to put them just light years ahead of others.
Yeah, I'll share my experience. And again, this is not because I think this is the best way to do it. And every time I look back, I'm like, oh, I wish you would have done this differently or that differently, or listened to this advice, that advice. The advice that I was given was, it was not how I was brought up, by the way. We didn't have money when I was growing up, so I didn't even have an allowance. I was given things when I needed them, and it was a very low cost solution at best, which is a good way to learn about being frugal and like appreciation. So I thank my parents for that, those lessons. With our children, though, we've got 3 kids. They're 11, 13, and 15 now. Our son's the youngest, and then the girl's the older 2. And when they were about 6, 7 years old, you can probably relate to this if you have kids at all. They started to want things they just didn't need, like stuff that you're just like, this is not a requirement. It's not clothing or food or even an experience at all. It's just like stuff. Yeah. And so my wife and I had some really healthy conversations in our marriage about why we shouldn't just buy these things they don't need for them. And it started at a pretty young age, probably because I'm in this business and I realized that, the need for people to value money, like we're talking about today.
Right.
And so I said, okay, we're going to set up an allowance system for them so that they can have their own money and buy these things they don't need with their own money. And we did it in a way that I don't know, it's been around for a long time, but so if like you have a 7-year-old, then the kid gets $7 per week because they're 7 years old. That's like what, 7 times 4, $38 a week. If 8-year-old,
per month,
8 times
you mean?
Per month, per month.
$28 a month.
To a 10-year-old, be about $40 a month. So it's not a lot of money, but it's enough money to like buy this stuff that you just really don't want your kids to maybe even necessarily have. You don't want to spend your money on Roblox or Robux or V-Bucks or whatever the bucks thing is. If they're into video games, or for girls, it might be something different, like clothing that they just don't, ever use. I don't know. That was our way to do it for a long time. And then I heard this, I was on one of these journeys where I was hiking 28 miles in Big Bear for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I heard a podcast and they're like, that whole system of allowance is broken. It's terrible. Don't do it. And I'm like, oh boy, I'm a bad parent.
There you go.
I'm a terrible parent. Yeah. And I'm like, I have to go to convince my wife that I was wrong all these years. But the concept was actually beautiful because it's what we teach, Jason. It's capitalism. And it was teaching that you should give your children money for doing things that are of value. And there should be different monetary values associated with different types of chores within a household. There should also be some chores that are just givens based on the fact that you live at that house. Like taking the trash
put your
out.
dishes and that kind of
clean
stuff.
up after yourself, basic common sense, like just good fundamental skills. But then there are things like wash dad's truck inside and outside. That's going to be worth some money, especially if dad's truck is really dirty. Like there's a higher value that, the more demand, the higher the price for it, right?
Sure.
So we're teaching them that now. And they do this on a regular basis where it's funny. I was telling you yesterday, Jason, my son doesn't spend very much money, but when he does, he spends all of it. And then he has no money and he wants something. So he'll go on a tear and he'll be like, okay, what can I do? And my wife will write it on the whiteboard in the morning. Every morning, it's like a habit. She'll do this before she goes to work out. Here's all the major things that have to happen around the house today that I'm aware of, and ask your dad if there's more. And they'll go do something sometimes if they want money. Sometimes they won't. But if they do, they have to negotiate with me on how much each thing is worth. And then I'll transfer it from our linked bank account into, we have an Acorns Early account. It used to be called Go Henry. Acorns bought them and they created Acorns Early for children. I've heard that Chase has a Chase First similar account for children that are, I think it's ages like 6 to 12 or so. And then once they hit 12 to 16, there's another kind of version. And then 16 and up, there's like a full-fledged. They're not building credit. It's not for that purpose at this moment. It's more of this allowance system, budgeting, valuing money. How much Chipotle can I afford today? That kind of stuff. And it's working pretty well. I think there's definitely some fine tuning we have to, as we go, they negotiate certain things. Sometimes my daughter will send me a list of 17 things and she's like, I did all these things over the past week. I'm like, that's not going to work. You need to be a little more accountable for when you did it and not just like, I'm just catching up and need money all of a sudden to go get a pedicure or something. Right.
Yeah.
That's been our experience so far. I hope it's helpful to listeners. I mean, and by the way, I welcome other people's advice that have been through this because I'm learning as I go here, and it's fun to try and do better for our children. That's phase 2. Let's speed up a little bit here. We're running out of time, but phase 3 is coaching, Jason, ages 12 to 17, which is very much where you and I are sitting right now. The newest sets of challenges are in this coaching phase, teaching, modeling, and encouraging, right?
Yeah. Perfect time, I think, to make sure that and I think you should do this earlier, but they'll start to actually understand the investments. And I think we as parents should be, if we don't know the answers, we do because this is what we do for a living. But if you don't know, like sitting down with them and learning what's the difference between an ETF and a mutual fund. What's a stock versus a bond? What's the expected returns of stocks? I'll ask people, what do you think a stock should return year over year, average return? And sometimes I'll get answers like 20%, 25, or I'll get 3, all over the board with, again, really intelligent people who just don't understand this aspect and this part of life. And I think it's critical to understand what would the expected return be and start putting values on that. This coaching time is also a great time to talk about different account types. So they start to understand, hey, I have a Roth IRA, I have a UTMA, here's an investment account, here's what a bank account is and a checking account versus an investment account. That the delineation between those becomes important. And that's literally where I'm at right now, is like, what account can I use for my kids that there's a certain amount of money in there? And I would like to have a cushion, because we use the Fidelity Youth account. And the Fidelity Youth account's a pretty cool account where the kids can have their own app and their own access to it. They can actually have a debit card against it too. They have investments. They can make trades. They can do things with their account. It's linked to my Fidelity account that then I can transfer money into and or out of. There's no credit card, so you're not getting building a credit history, which we debated that even yesterday too, Alex. Is that important? I think it's important. How important, I don't know. But the Fidelity Youth account works pretty good for what I've seen from a standpoint of being able to invest. I can see it, they can see it, and we can transfer money in. But what I'm now looking for more is like, how do I control how much money they have? Because literally one of my boys would sell all of his stocks and go buy fishing poles on a day that he caught a big fish and he was really stoked on fishing. And then the next day he'd be stoked on surfing and sell all of his stocks and go buy a surfboard. So I gotta be like, and the other kid would never spend any money. And he would just be like, Dad, can I borrow $10 for Chipotle? Because I don't want to spend my money out of my account. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I say like, okay, this is the actually spending account versus this is your investment savings future account. So that's really where this age and this phase I think it becomes critical to teach them. Again, I'm behind. I need to do better.
Hey, that's life though. Sometimes you have to take a step back, take 2 steps forward. So it's okay if you're going back a chapter to be like, hey, hold on, we didn't actually address this whole give, save, spend concept. Let's talk about that in real life now. And the other one too, I think, Jason, that might help you, and I'm learning this right now, and I'm struggling, by the way, with our oldest, is showing her the importance of education and getting really good grades and excelling at education to give you more choices later on in life. Same thing, like you were at the beginning of the show, you were talking about, like, is college even worth it? Like that debate that's going on, is it worth the money, the price tag? Well, if you save the money for it, at least you have the choice.
Yeah.
If you don't save the money for it, it becomes a really easy choice because then it's like, well, you're all student loans or you're not going at all. The same thing happens in school, and you're at this critical ages 12 to 17, middle school to high school ages. This is when you're going to give yourself choices or you're not. And so showing, I love what Santa Fe Christian, where our kids go to school, some of our kids at least, they took them to this exercise freshman year, remember? Where they actually did this very intense sort of
business day, right? The business day.
They did that too, but the one that I liked even more was it showed them where their skills lied. Kind of like the Colby A index thing that we did. Where are your skills right now? Not just your grades, but like what are you inherently wired to do well? And then it showed them career paths and actual jobs, entry-level jobs, and it showed them salary ranges. And it was really cool because I got to see that information and share it back with my wife and my daughter and say, if you want to go this path, like here's what a starting salary is versus this path versus this path. So there's that delayed gratification, but it's like if you get good grades, you can choose any of these paths probably. If you kind of focus in on this or you don't do well, here's kind of a path. And the school was telling her, not me, which is great also.
Yes.
Still struggling because she wants to do well, but she's not like inherently a great student. Like my wife was a straight A+ student and she didn't even try that hard. Whereas I had to try like really hard to get A+ or even A's.
Yeah.
Kind of an interesting phase.
That's why ChatGPT is your best friend now, right?
ChatGPT.
See, you're getting educated now every day.
Yeah, I'm catching up.
Yeah, I think we're both catching up. It's good. So these coaching years, summarizing, right? First job, open a Roth, set financial goals. Maybe they make some money. Maybe you add a credit card so that they can start building that credit for sure. They need to start learning about like kind of what's insurance, how does that work, right? What are taxes? Why does that work? I think at least by that age, they should be very well versed in that. Let's go to 4.
Okay.
And we'll bring this to a close, right? 4, you're consulting, good luck, it's over. You either did a good job on 1 through 3 or you didn't. Kid's going to be a success or a failure.
That's what Jason Graves said, basically.
It's really true. I mean, if you don't do, and parents, I think it's really easy for us to me being behind in something that I should be so far ahead in. It's so easy to kind of skip on, I'll do that later. And the problem is there are critical years where a child's brain is forming that certain things need to happen during those years. Mm-hmm. And if you wait, you miss it and you can't get it back, right? If a kid doesn't learn respect for authority and respect for adults by a certain age, they'll probably never get it back. They may never learn it, and that's scary. But by the time they're 18 plus, my gosh, what was the stat we had? It's like 81% of college grads are actually coming back to their parents' home right now.
Yeah.
So that's even beyond.
Because of financial stress. That's the major reason.
But I think that all gets solved with steps 1 through 3. If you did the things we did, if you set up a UTMA, if you set up a 529, if you educated your kids about the difference between stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and if they had an account and if they had a budget and they had discipline and they were able to track their spending, and I think that those problems probably go away. And I think that percentage of 81% of kids coming back home goes down precipitously.
But if it doesn't, I'll say this, because I think our company is founded on some core values. One of them is optimism.
Yep.
And I think that's the most important thing, and why at church it resonated so powerfully with both you and I, and with my wife. She came out of there, she's like, oh my gosh, we're doing a terrible job. And I'm like, no, honey, we're doing the best we can. Like most everybody else who's a parent.
We'll do better. We can always do better.
And in the consulting phase, like that's where it's going to be really, really the best challenge for me to just listen as much as I can, and then come in with support rather than advice. The advice comes in the form of support and encouragement. Like, okay, you've decided to max out your credit card and you don't have a way to pay it off. Like, man, that sucks. Like
how you going to, it's problem solving, right?
Yes.
Consultants help you solve problems. Hopefully they don't get in those problems, but they may. And
I'm sure there's some of them coming, man.
Yeah, I'm sure so too. Foot out of mouth, right? How many times?
I mean, I did it when I was that age. So, that's how I learned, was first to make the mistake. And then I had to learn how to solve it and never do that again. Right.
I bet if you had the experience of 1, 2, 3, these phases of all that teaching and coaching, you wouldn't have made those mistakes.
Yeah.
So I think it's laying the foundation and having a plan. Certainly when they come back home, if they're not running their own financial affairs, I think parents are making a dramatic mistake. You have a post-college person who's been college educated, and they come home and they're still not managing their own financial affairs with their own accounts, their own investment account, and some type of, if you're giving them money, some type of monthly number for doing certain things.
Yeah. And they should be able to do their own laundry, do laundry, cook your own food. Like, these kind of things are really good for success, right?
I mean,
be independent. Yeah.
Right. If a kid is living at home and they don't have a job, or even if they have a job, they got to manage their own finances and probably should be paying some rent.
Yes.
Doesn't matter if it's $500 a month. They should be paying something to understand that living in a dwelling and a roof over your head with proper plumbing and fresh water costs money. So that's it. I mean, look, it's kind of harsh in a way, but it's not harsh, because the consequence of not doing this, that's what's harsh, is watching people suffer and be financially ignorant and then go out into the world, and God forbid the parents pass on, and now this person is trying to figure it all out and they're ignorant financially. That's brutal, right? So I think taking these steps, we'll put a summary together so you can download this from our show, financialdetox.com. You can get that on YouTube. You can get the show audibly on Spotify. I think even the video comes up on Spotify, but check it out, financialdetox.com. Jason Labrum and Alex Klingensmith, and we'll put some show notes in there so you can click these and have a little guide to help you make better decisions. We appreciate you tuning in. As always, we'll catch you on the next show.